The battle for the mind of North America will be fought in the video arena. The television screen is the retina of the mind's eye. Therefore, the television screen is part of the physical structure of the brain.
All right, here we go, Jason. This is episode 5 of the Outer Reels. We've made it this far so far. What are we watching tonight?
This is Blue Monkey, or is it Insect?
Tell me.
For a minute there, I was like, oh God, is this happening again?
That's exactly what I thought. Oh, this is straight off the bat. I apologize to you for picking this movie. It was a bit of a stinker, but you know, like everything, it's got some good qualities.
There's some good qualities. It's got a great cast. Every time I was like, holy shit. Wow, someone else. I like Joe Flaherty and Robin Duke and the dude from Life Force is the star of this thing.
Yes, I was like, wow, Life Force is the same thing. A lot of interesting actors popped up, strange out of nowhere, of like as a good collective of people in this movie.
Yeah,
but I guess we can get into that.
Well, I'm curious. Did you know who Don Lake or Philip Aiken were before you watched this?
No.
Okay, so because Don Lake's a pretty well-known Canadian actor, and any Canadian would recognize him.
No, I'm sorry, Don Lake. He was the bug guy.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, yeah, he was great because I know him mostly from Terminator 2.
Yeah, he's in Terminator 2, and I think Philip Aiken is as well. The head of security, the black guy. He's I know him from the old War of the Worlds TV show. That was on in the late 80s. Which you may not have gotten down in Australia.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I don't think I ever saw or heard of that.
Yeah, so that was, I'll go on a tangent. That was 3 seasons of basically, basically the Martians have infiltrated human society underground, and there's like a handful of scientists that are like rooting them out and trying to stop them. And that was the basis of the show. I loved it at the time. It was like a early syndicated thing.
Huh. I got to check that out. I mean, it sounds cool. Was it Canadian?
Yeah, it was all done out of Toronto.
Oh, well, So it never made it. Although things from the Commonwealth usually cross-pollinated more than anywhere else. So I'm surprised. It might have entirely been there, and I just totally missed it. But.
Well, I was watching it off American syndicated channels, so...
I see. Right.
It's one of those things. But
Gotcha, yeah.
Yeah.
So... 1987, Blue Monkey. What can I say about this other than this is a blind pick on just discovering movies I hadn't seen or heard of that were specifically Canadian. Mm-hmm. It was directed by a guy named William Fruet. I thought maybe Jason would know a little bit more about him, but I'd never heard of him, and he really didn't do much either side of this.
No, it looks like he did a bunch of TV stuff, and that was essentially it, and like a lot of stuff that no one's ever heard of too. So. Yeah,
the one thing that caught my attention of his actually from 2017, he played himself in a documentary called Tax Shelter Terrors, and it's specifically about Canadian tax incentives that helped develop like Canada's horror and exploitation film industry. So I was like, that's an absolute must watch.
I had no idea that was even a thing.
Yeah, so we got to check that out. That might probably cover a real lot of stuff we've already covered, actually. So it's kind of neat that he showed up in that.
Yeah. So we'll get the 6 degrees of Jason out of the way. Gwyneth Walsh, our sort of lead doctor hero. I have, going through her IMDb page, done 4 movies with her. So all Hallmarks. And including Journey Back to Christmas, which is the Hallmark movie I did with Tom Skerritt.
So really? The Skerritt one?
Yeah, that was shot in Winnipeg, so I didn't meet anybody from the cast on that one. But
I remember you telling me about the Winnipeg Skerritt movie. Wow.
But Gwyneth lives here in town, so...
That's so funny. The only thing I noticed about her for this was that this was her first picture. And then I said, looking through the stuff, I was like, I don't know. And I was like, oh, she did a bunch of Star Trek. And I was like, I bet you Jason knows her.
She was in Battlestar Galactica, I think, too.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah. So
Because now, remind me, because that series that came out, the first pilot was kind of released like a movie, right? It was like a 90-minute episode or something. Is that what? Because I always confused and thought that was the movie, but then I found out it was part of the TV show. I forget how that all went down.
Battlestar, yeah. I'm talking about the remake. She was in that.
That's what I was talking about. Yeah.
Oh, were you? Okay, because the original series was done, and they released a movie theatrically, which was the first 2 episodes recut. Back in the 70s, they did the same thing with Buck Rogers.
I didn't know that.
Buck Rogers, which came after Battlestar Galactica, I think from the same guy. What's it? Larson. Glenn Larson? Can't remember his name. Anyway, the same guy did both shows. So they reused a bunch of models from Battlestar Galactica and Buck Rogers, which I thought was hilarious at the time. So no, the remake was done as a mini series. So it was like 3 double-length episodes or something, if I remember right. And then the series went from there. And if you've never seen it, you should at least watch the beginning of it, because that very first episode of season 1 is one of the best hours of television I've ever seen. It's called 33, and it is so good.
I did hear that it was good, and the reason I asked if it was a feature, because I remember like actual movie posters for it flying around, like as if it was this feature release. But that's what I was confused, because I was like, I thought that was a TV show. But
yeah, it was. It was a mini series that they started with, and and again, I was doing daily dubs on that thing, and I remember watching a bit of it and going, "Oh God, that's a viper on the deck of a BC ferry. I don't know how this is going to be." And then. Because I missed it when it aired on the Space Channel up here, which was our version of Sci-Fi, because we didn't get the Sci-Fi Channel up here. But then NBC aired it over the summer, re-aired the miniseries, and I was able to catch it that way, and I was hooked. The series overall doesn't end great, in my opinion, but and it's pretty obvious they didn't have an end game planned out for the show, but they worked to one. But I loved that show when it was on. Yeah, but this isn't about Battlestar Galactica.
This movie was written by George Goldsmith. Did you know him of fame of anything else?
No, I didn't even think to look him up. So
he did the screenplay for Children of the Corn in 1984.
Oh, there you go.
But that was about his big hitter. And then he only did screenplays previously, and then he got a full writing credit on this movie and then sort of melted off after this. So there wasn't much going on there. Did you catch who the editor was?
You know, I don't look at that closely at these things, Sam.
Michael Fruet, brother.
Our director.
The director.
Brother. Okay. I was going to say.
So
there you go.
You know what's more important about this guy? That he was also credited as the assistant set dresser on The Brood.
Oh, shit. Nice.
Yeah. Nice I thought that was a good bit. I was like, wow.
Just tells you how incestuous the Canadian film industry is.
Yeah, it's funny, like seeing some of these crossover. I knew we were going to get a little crossover, but it's definitely denser than I expected already.
One thing, if we want to talk cast, one thing I didn't notice until actually I looked up the cast afterwards. Sarah Polley is in this as one of the kids.
Sarah Polley, what do I know?
Sarah Polley, so well-known Canadian actress. Probably know her from Dawn of the Dead or Go or The Sweet Hereafter. Well, you would have never watched The Sweet Hereafter.
Definitely not.
But Go, you might have seen. Dawn of the Dead, the Schneider one. She's one of the stars of that. She's a director as well. Well-known Canadian actress. Started as a child actor and then went on. She was in Existence, for God's sakes.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
There you go. Yeah. I didn't, I just didn't look into the kids in this movie. I just was scrolling down through the list and was like, oh my God, because I didn't even notice her or recognize her. No,
so.
Of course, right. Interesting thing that I thought was neat is, did you notice that the creature is top billed on the credit cast?
I saw that.
Yeah. And did you see who that is? Ivan E. Roth?
I did not catch that, no.
He is Willie in Night of the Comet.
Oh, sweet.
Pretty cool, actually. I thought that was a good one. I thought you'd dig that.
Yeah. Oh, you know, I am a Night of the Comet fan.
So let's just say, straight off the bat in this movie, as we briefly mentioned, you hit play on this thing, and the first thing that comes up is a title card that says "Insect," giant letters.
Yes.
And
Well, and that's the first time you get any sound, too. It's like the first couple of names that pop up and the logo off the start have no sound.
and then you're just like, "Oh God, is this Empire of Ash all over again? What am I watching? Why is this called this?" So, for whatever reason, we can get into it later. The name changes and stuff, but yeah, this movie is listed everywhere as Blue Monkey, but on the actual credit roll, they call it Insect. So another case of that.
Yeah, I was
Okay.
confused there for a few minutes, but like I said, I just looked it up and went, okay, this is just one of those movies that has multiple titles and it just is what it is. At least there's no 16 different sequels or reissues with, being called Insect 2 or Blue Monkey 4.
Yeah. Yeah, it's easy to track down and know that what we're watching is what we watched.
Nice change of pace.
Okay, so what's your elevator pitch for this movie? You're standing in the elevator on the 3rd floor. You get on, and Joel Silver's there, and you've got till the 11th floor to sell him this movie.
Oh, God. Don't. don't buy it. No. So, all right. Essentially, this, in a nice little bit of exposition at the beginning between a woman gardener and her suitor, shall we say, is that there's a brand new flower that just came from a new island, that volcanic island that formed off the coast of, what was it, Micronesia, I think.
I didn't catch the name of the island. I was like, where?
Yeah, it was a new island. I think they said Micronesia. So yeah, and it's just like some new flower that's growing there, and the gardener pricks it, gets cut, and little does he know, but he's been infected by something. Goes to the hospital, and everyone who's exposed to him gets infected as well. And then for some reason, this creature grows. It's like, I don't know. They abandoned the infection thing pretty quickly, although I did love the way they cured is the word I'm looking for. They cured that infection. I love the way that comes around, but I'll wait till we get there.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. It's a
hijinks ensue.
For the most part, it's meant to be this cabin fever type virus breakout film with the threat of a creature, but that all sounds better than how it's executed.
Yeah.
Where the idea is that there's this thing and some kind of disease and it's affecting everybody, and from that a creature is born, and story sort of shifts where the creature is now more the threat than this breakout disease, but neither of those really are a threat, and they're both wiped out quite easily. So
I should say that they shot this, from the looks of things, at a place called Humber College in Toronto, and probably all in the same building is my guess. And they used that location quite well. They did make it look like or feel like an old hospital, I guess, in a lot of ways, that for some reason is doing laser research. So I remember noting that the laser is like, when does this come back? This is Chekhov's gun right there.
yeah, I thought the same thing. I was like, wait, it's a hospital? Wait, why is there laser research?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, maybe this, yeah, sure enough.
This will come back. But I bought that it was a hospital for the most part. Down in the basement and stuff, it didn't really look like one, but whatever.
Yeah, there's even a point where she says, oh, we don't come down here much anymore. This used to be the insane asylum part.
Yeah, they're showing these cages, but they never really use it after that, which I thought was kind of weird. I thought they were going to try and barricade a creature inside one of those or something, but
there's a lot of moments like that where they sort of talk about things like things are going to get set up, and then you think that's what's going to happen, and then they either changed or ran out of money or something didn't pay off. So, I mean, I won't say that the movie feels incomplete because they wrap it up better than Empire of Ash with a freeze frame and a off-screen yell. But
yeah, but that goes without saying. I mean, everything wraps it up better than Empire of Ash did.
But that said, I still felt more entertainment watching Empire of Ash because I'm like, what hokey thing are they going to pull next? And this definitely had a drag because I'm just like, I know where this is going, and there's no excitement along the way. as you said at the beginning, it starts with it's an elderly couple and they're checking out this plant that she has in her greenhouse. And the elderly gentleman touches it and he's like, ow. And then he's like, I should get this checked out. And so he goes to the hospital.
Well,
And
he collapses at his car and she gets him to the hospital.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, he starts having a heart attack.
He's got like a blood and a ring around his finger now where he got he thought it was from a thorn or something that it doesn't have. So,
there's some severity to it. So, and he gets rushed to the hospital. And then the hospital essentially is where it all goes down. And our doctor, Rachel Carson, is working there. And she gets put on his case straight away, does she? Or I can't remember.
There's two of them there right away. There's the two doctors, both women doctors, which I thought was pretty cool for 1987.
Pushing it.
They had a little fun with that too, right? Where the cop's like, "I need a doctor" when his partner comes in, which is about when this all happens, and they kind of roll their eyes because he just assumes they're nurses and.
She's like, I'm the doctor. What did you expect or whatever? Yeah. So, we've got old man plant guy with an injured finger. And then Steve Railsback shows up, who's Detective Jim Bishop. And he comes storming into the hospital. His partner's got a bullet in his stomach. And he's screaming away and he's trying to get them to stop everything and help out his partner because they've been together for a long time. And so the way that Detective Jim Bishop meets Dr. Carson is he drags his wounded partner into the hospital and he starts yelling and screaming he needs a doctor. And he's surprised when she comes over to help and he's expecting it to be a real doctor. And it's not. In his eyes, she's not.
Right. It is. But it is 1987. You think you'd know better by now.
So this is when I was like, I know this guy. Like, I don't know his name. And I was like, man, I've seen his face. Like, what is he from? And I just couldn't put anything on it. Usually takes me a little while, but then I was like, oh yeah, as you said, I was like, it's the Life Force guy.
Yeah, he gets it on with a space vampire.
That's right. And I was like, and so I looked him up and then I started laughing because I was like, oh cool. Like he was in Turkey Shoot, which 1982. And that I think is the very first movie that had the whole like humans are hunting humans type or game type movie.
Right. I have heard of that.
It's a cool movie.
Yeah. Early 80s, right?
Yeah. But he was also in Nuki from 1987, if you remember that.
I don't.
Oh, it's like this crappy like Mac and Me style kids movie about this alien called Nuki that's looking for its trapped alien brother. It's terrible.
Oh God. So it's just a Mac and Me ripoff, which is a ripoff of E.T. then.
yeah. If you're looking for premium ripoff, go Nuki because it is a Mac and Me ripoff. So it's like ripoff to the power of it's not good. And
you said 87, didn't you? So it's the same year as this, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it was the same year. It's a quick deal. He was in Alligator 2, The Mutation from 91. I really liked the first Alligator. My friend's uncle actually directed that movie.
Wow.
It has some great stop motion and stuff in it. But the reason I'm bringing all this up is because there was a point where Railsback came out and specifically said he was embarrassed with his involvement with this movie. So somebody called him out on it because he had a lot of stuff and somehow somebody saw this and then so he wasn't even happy with the result of this movie. So after he meets the doctor and she starts tending to his partner, their progression of two characters goes pretty quickly. He drops the line on her and then he says, so who gets to examine you?
Yes, I noted that too. And it's like, you've known her for 3.5 minutes?
And this is kind of a sign of things to come with this movie because straight off the top of that, she's like, actually, let's just show you around the hospital. And we have this super secret laser experiment. And why don't you come and see that? And
but he's a cop. He's safe. He's a cop. It's awesome.
I guess it's just a strange way from him hitting on her to her showing him like the most secret thing they're working on in this hospital / science laboratory. And they kind of touch on that. She says that like it's not just a real hospital. It's or something. There's a weird line there where they're saying, "Well, the other hospitals were full, and that's why he ended up there." I can't remember how that came out. It didn't make sense, though.
Yeah, I don't remember either.
Yeah. Also, so speaking of Gwyneth Walsh, your best buddy, because you worked with so many times.
I think I have met her once or twice, but yeah.
I did see, yeah, she did Star Trek, but her character's name in this movie is actually a reference to a real American marine biologist and conservationist. Her name is Rachel Carson, who wrote a book about the advancing of the global environmental movement.
Oh,
so somebody involved in this movie was big on that and then gave her that. I wonder how the woman who wrote the book feels about it. But so she just volunteers to him that, hey, we've got this super advanced laser experiment in the basement of the hospital. Let's come have a look at it. And she sort of explains that they do molecular experiments with lasers, but it's so top secret. I don't know where the funding's coming, why it exists there. And then they're walking past and they have these two lasers that intersect each other and explode like a vial of goo. And that's that's there's not much more to it, really.
Nope, we're using two lasers to blow things up, which is great when we get to the end of the movie and they only use one and it's doing nothing. So
I was waiting for that at the ending. I'm like, oh, she's not doing anything. He's going to come in with the other laser. They're going to cross the street. Yeah. I'm glad you saw that too.
Nope. And
none of that happened.
Instead, we get shoot it in the eye. Sorry, but we're jumping ahead.
Way ahead here. But your point is there's foreshadowing here that never gets picked up on again. Kind of like what we talked. There's moments where you're like, oh, this is a setup, and then it just never happens again.
Nope. There's a bunch of instances where that happens. I think this is also about the part where he meets the kids for the first time.
I had such a groan. I let out such a groaner. I was like, kids.
Well, I was trying to think after the last movie, like, how do you feel about all these kids, Sam? Because they keep coming back.
Like, dude, I mean, there's no economy of character in any kids. There's just, I could go on, but I definitely had a groaner on this one.
And they're not, for the most part, they're not great actors, which doesn't help. But I mean, a good kid actor is rare. So, I mean, which goes without saying. It's just, these guys were just not great. I did like the fact that the cop drops a Kolchak reference, though, which I was like, wow, okay.
Oh, the Kojak one?
Did he say Kojak or did he say Kolchak?
I thought he said Kojak.
Oh, maybe he said Kojak. Okay. Kolchak would have impressed me more. Because Kolchak is all about, as Darren McGavin. I guess because, he's a reporter in that, so it had to be Kojak. Okay, ignore me. I don't know what I'm talking about.
I don't know what is Kolchak. I don't know what that is.
Kolchak is it takes place in Seattle. It was a 70s couple of made-for-TV movies and then a series. And they remade it at a certain point, I think in the 2000s, that went nowhere. But the idea is he's a reporter, but like in the first one, he's investigating these murders in Seattle from, the city that's underneath Seattle, it had that earthquake and they kind of built the city on top of it. You can take those tours down. So there's a vampire down there. And so that's what that is. And
sounds awesome.
It's called The Night Stalker. And it was great. My dad was the one who got me hooked on it and told me all about it. And, so then they did a second movie, and then they did a series that didn't last for very long. But Kojak makes sense because...
to your credit, though, Kojak is the same time period. I think it was 74 or something to early 80s. So it was around in the same period. So you're not far off.
Well, and little known fact here, I just noticed as I'm scrolling through Steve Railsback's IMDb page, he was in that revamped 2005 Kojak.
Oh, really?
He's in an episode of that. So,
I wonder if he was personally interested in it, and that was his line, and that's how he got. Who knows?
Maybe I don't know.
That's kind of funny. Yeah. So the kids just kind of, these four kids show up, and they're all kind of prop kids. One of them has a neck brace on, and they're all trying to be this classic ragtag group of kids. And then,
but some really harsh throwaway lines too, like how the kid with leukemia, who's the main boy with the red hat, his parents just dump them there and ignore him.
And then he's like, "What? Why are you here?" And the kid's like, "I got leukemia," and that's it. You never hear that again. There's not any.
But then the doctor mentions like
resolution.
his parents never come by. They just kind of dumped him there, and it's like,
Yeah, I don't know if they're experimental or what, because the kids just kind of live together in this thing. That's all strange. But the cornball plot device here is that the kids are always up to no good in the hospital, and they're crawling around, and they know their way around, and then the doctor comes over and she says, "Oh, last time I caught you guys, you were crawling around the air ducts." And I'm just like, I just remember groaning and being like, leukemia kid is going to save the day of this movie because he's going to crawl in an air duct, isn't he? Like, this is not the movie I was expecting, a bunch of heroic ragtag kids in a laser research lab.
But he doesn't crawl in the air duct. So anyway, but that doesn't happen again. I mean, he kind of saves the day because he hangs back, but not really.
No.
So,
again,
yeah.
Nothing really paid off.
Yeah.
So is this about the time where the old guy coughs up a worm?
It's about there, yeah. And a big-ass white worm.
It's kind of gross. Like,
it's gross.
I can handle any kind of gore in movies, but...
Well, it's because it looks like a big white caterpillar is what it looks like.
Yeah, it looks like a white... I thought you were going to say big white cat turd, because it also looks like that, too.
That, too.
But the white goo on it, ever since Alien with Ash, introducing the idea of, like, the coolant fluid that flows through the synthetic.
Yeah.
When he gets injured, it seems grosser for some reason than anything else. And so when this guy coughs up this cocooned worm, it's covered in white goo, and I was like, "Oh, that is kind of gross." And if it was any other color, I probably wouldn't care, but white goo still hits pretty good.
Yeah, and that's what I think when they decide to put everybody in isolation who was exposed to him, and but nobody wears masks or does anything when they're supposed to be in isolation. It's just kind of whatever. Like the gardener woman's her friend shows up and brings booze. Because, as I've learned from all these movies that we watch, that's all senior citizens do.
The old ladies do is just pound
drink. So
there is a collective of other characters in this movie that provide no support or end result, and they're almost there just for cutaway sequences all the time, and they're not doing very interesting stuff. And that's another part of the drag is you're getting somewhere with the movie, and then they cut to the two drunk old women who are having a good time, and they don't provide anything. I mean, it's not like one of them at the end, we figured out the weakness to the creature. It hates Jack Daniels. And she's like, "Oh, I've got some," and pulls it out and pours it all. There's just no reason for her to even be there at this point.
Well, there is, because they discover that the fact that she's sauced is the reason why she doesn't get the infection doesn't grow in her like it does everyone else.
Yes.
Because she's hammered, but that's it. But I mean, again, they're like you're saying, but they're wasting people because they bring in John Vernon. He's Dean Wormer, for God's sakes, and he does nothing. It's just kind of like you think he's going to be like the villain because he doesn't want to lock down the place or anything, but no, he's just kind of there to mouth back at the doctors and then disappears again and then comes back again and does nothing.
He's great, man. What a great voice. Do you know he was the prosecutor in Heavy Metal in the Hand Over Fist episode?
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So everything goes back to Heavy Metal. Also a Canadian.
Heavy Metal and Phantasm.
Yeah, it's most important. He was also the doctor on Airplane 2.
Oh, God. There you go.
Not Airplane, also Airplane 2, the sequel.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I like Airplane 2, the sequel, but
Great
I don't
movie.
remember it that well.
This woman doesn't get sick because she's full of booze, but it doesn't turn into a nationwide alert. Everybody go down to the pub, get sloshed. These things can't get you. Nothing comes from that.
Nope, not at all. It's just like the doctor with the glasses has a realization, and that's it. Or before this, actually, Robin Duke and Joe Flaherty have come in to SCTV, and Robin Duke was on Saturday Night Live as well. Alumni who have this comedic subplot for, I don't know why they're even in the movie.
Yeah.
It's just, she's having a baby and he's planned everything out down to the last second, but I guess it fills out time and it's comedy relief, but it's so out of place.
And there's not a sense of threat. It's not like, oh, she's got to have a baby and now the creature's coming, or there's like this sort of additional thing that's stacked on where they can't move her or something like that. Yep. She's just having a baby normally in another room the whole way through the movie, and there's no crossover. There's no, you just don't care again.
No, and it doesn't look like there's ever any sort of danger to her or anything.
No.
I mean, because she's in the building, I guess that's where the danger is, but they never allude to anything extra. And it's just like, it just feels like they, for whatever reason, were able to get the two of them are available for the movie, and they just quickly wrote them in.
Yeah.
Like, because they're both well known by this point.
Yeah, just a huge waste of a great character actor. Yeah, so then we go over to begin some kind of inspection on what the hell this thing is, and we get a little mini biopsy scene where they start cutting open the cocoon, and it starts oozing some green stuff, and then it just fires off an electric shock. And that's kind of it. And they're like, oh, we don't know what to do with this, and they put a glass jar on top of it.
Yeah.
And then another medic comes into the woman doctor. He's like, hey, let's go smoke a joint. And they're like, sure. So they leave, and now they leave.
I'm supposed to keep an eye on it, but it'll be fine. They'll be gone for 10 minutes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then the kids show up. The mischievous kids are exploring around, and they run into the room. They see the cocoon, the strange surgical thing in the glass. But
we should point out we never see inside the glass ever.
This is a huge fault for this movie. It's all subjective. There's so many things where it's just reactions and people doing things, and you never see anything for quite a while. We'll go into it later.
Yeah,
but you don't really see anything. So then the kids discover this glass jar.
One says it's hungry.
It decides that whatever gross worm is in here it's hungry, and the kids feel really sad for it. But the music, I will say, there was some real vibes from The Thing here. There was this like low-end sweetener pulsing. I don't know if you noticed that in the score. It was actually pretty good. I think this was my favorite thing about the movie so far, is the music is pretty decent.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I didn't notice that about The Thing, but the music, for the most part, wasn't terrible, which says something.
Yeah. And then the kids deciding the worm's hungry, one of the kids pulls this giant jar of this weird blue stuff off the shelf called NAC5 or NAC5.
Yep.
And then he just dumps a pile of it on the worm. Like, it's not like a kid being like, oh, he's hungry. Here's some jelly beans. It's like, oh, he's hungry. I'm going to pull the gnarliest looking chemical off the wall and dump it on this worm.
It's not like it was beside it or anything either. He had to go across the room to get it.
And it just doesn't, it looks completely the opposite of anything like food as well. It just looks like a chemical.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like bright neon blue green kind of whatever.
NAC-4, NAC5.
And he just dumps it all on, and then there's a reaction, again, that we don't really see. You can kind of see it from they don't show us inside the jar, so you just kind of see this sort of, was it like smoke or something going off, or was there I can't remember if there was a spark or something.
You just don't know what happens. Then we cut away to some other sequence that one of the groups of people in the hospital that we don't care about again. But during this time, we finally transition to them deciding that they need more help because one of the other doctors has done a blood test on the old man. Do you remember that scene?
Yep.
Yeah.
And that's when they mention that other facility, which is supposed to be the CDC, but it's not. It's like more regional. Was it like the Lincoln Institute of Disease Control or something like that?
Yeah, they mentioned something like, because they do a blood panel on him, and they said something interesting where she shows a syringe, and she said whatever's inside him is dissolving his blood circulatory system and his bones. It's like trying to just eat him from the inside out. And then he flatlines, and they go to a defibrillator, and there's only one defibrillator scene on Earth that matters. We know what one that is. Yeah. And they go to this one.
It's called the Abyss.
Ouch. Good one, though. Pretty good. You got me. And they defibrillate him, and it's pretty unclimactic. Some blood oozes out from under one of the paddles, and that's it.
Yeah.
Again, no, you don't see any effects or anything like that. So
Well, doesn't it kind of like explode though, right? Like there's a bright light or whatever, but
you see a spray of blood,
Oh,
but it doesn't
that's
come
right,
off
spray
the
of blood.
body.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. And then of course the kids, after they've left, they come back and they say, "I can't believe you've been gone for half an hour."
Just in case you want to make sure how much time is going by.
Yeah. So, because then they decide they're going to get it on the lit up lab table, and
Oh yeah, that's
yeah. So, but this is where, like every '80s movie, sex equals death, right? Because that's when the creature comes out and kills them both.
especially when you're completely illuminated by a backlit tabletop. So we're into the movie now. We're like 35 or so minutes into this movie, and I'm thinking I haven't seen nothing. So for my investment in this movie, I'm wanting a big payoff on this creature, because right now I'm not getting anything, and I'm thinking, okay, this is I'm gonna ride it out and it'll be worth it at the end. I'm looking for a payoff. So I'm starting to want something out of this movie.
Right. And you're not getting it here.
Definitely not. Although they introduced the coolest character in the whole thing with Dr. Jacobs, who
Right.
you mentioned, played by Don Lake.
Yep. Yep. He finally comes in. And, famous Canadian comedic character actor. And,
Yeah, he was Mr. Wig in Police Academy,
yes.
and Manic Mike in Short Circuit too.
Yes, he was.
But
I think he did a string of commercials or something here too. I was trying to remember what I really recognize him from, but
oh, interesting.
probably
Yeah.
he was just in everything there for a while. So
Yeah, I mean, I'll forever know him as the detective in Terminator 2. He's specifically the guy who is interviewing Sarah Connor at the hospital, and he has the photos of the Terminator, and he's like, "This was taken in the mall in Reseda today." He's a good actor.
Mm-hmm.
How does this get set up? Because he's a bug expert, but does he show up to the hospital and they go back, or no? They seek
call
him
him and they call
That's
him and then they send the head of security to get him.
That's right.
And
Yeah.
he picks him up in a Volkswagen Beetle, and the guy's like, "Oh, it's my favorite car." He's
A
like,
great
"Beetle?"
line. They drive to his house. It's this old Victorian house, and the head of security's driving an orange Volkswagen.
Orange Volkswagen Beetle. Looks like a 78 or something. It's just
And he
Yeah.
just randomly says, well, yeah, what does he actually say to him? He's like,
he says, "That's my favorite car." And the guy looks at him and says, "A Beetle?" And he goes, "Yeah."
That's right.
It's like, yep.
So good. It's probably the best line in the movie. And then, like, as he's getting into it, he's like, "I love these. I tried to get one in blue once," and it sort of fades out.
Yeah,
I don't know.
exactly.
He's just, it makes him a likable character to some extent. Then we cut back to, I guess, exterior here. While they're getting in the car, you hear a lot of sirens and stuff going on. It's like this idea that there's more chaos going on
Yeah.
all around the world, or all around the city or something.
Yeah, we
But
there's like, they hear all these sirens stuff, like, what's going on in the city? It's like, oh, I don't know. And and they get back to the hospital, and of course it's the military's like commandeered and quarantined the entire space.
Yeah, I do like how we get back to the hospital and everybody's at the front doors of the hospital, and there's an army guy there, and he's chaining up the door handle on the hospital.
Yeah.
And everybody's standing in front of plate glass windows. They're like one hospital chair away from just smashing the window and leaving.
Yep. But of course that doesn't happen.
No. There is one scene where a guy tries to escape from a second window, and he repels out and starts running, and then the army just shoot him on the spot. So I guess they try and put some kind of sense of threat down there.
I don't even remember. I completely missed that.
Oh, yeah. It's
So-
a really short shot, but it's sort of a way to say, hey,
Yeah.
like, we're not messing around, and they keep everybody locked in there. So now we're back inside the hospital. The army's got it coerced, or the army's got it surrounded. Nobody's getting out. It's chained off.
Yeah.
And a different nurse discovers the room where the joint smoker nurse took off.
Yeah.
And now you're like, okay, she's going to discover some horror. And then there's just a bunch of green goo on the ground. And Dr. Jacobs finds the bottle of NAC5 and says, you know, what is it? The bug. And she says it's a genetic growth hormone. And so I
Right.
think that's a way to be
But-
like, now it's going to get bigger. Like the kid's fed it this, the one thing in the whole hospital that would make it grow.
Yeah, but
Now
you're
they've dumped it on this worm.
You've jumped past the part of the nurse who discovers the bodies, like stares at the camera with one of the longest, loudest screams I've ever seen in cinema history. And she's looking, and she's not looking at anything but straight down the lens of the camera.
Barreling it. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
And that's another problem with this movie is it's all reactionary. Like
yeah,
Empire of Ash was all action with no reactionary.
yeah.
This movie is all reactionary with no action.
We should set these two movies up. Maybe their child will be watchable.
We could intercut the two of them and probably have something.
Yeah, maybe. So
Yeah,
so the hormone has caused this thing to grow, and it's gone downstairs. Is really all we know.
Yeah, the power in the hospital starts surging, and somehow it's down in the basement. And the fire department have orders to burn the hospital in the next 2 hours because they said there's a bacteria.
No, it was
So this is-
it was the army guy that says that.
Yes. Okay, you're right.
So,
yeah.
Unless he gets a call from Washington in the next 2 hours, he's under orders to burn the hospital or something or destroy it.
Yeah, so this is strange because now we have a situation that's supposedly contained inside this hospital, but also it's going on all around the world. But
Well, they
the
don't want to escape. That's the thing. They know something's wrong and they don't want it to escape. So they're under orders to destroy the hospital to prevent that from happening, right?
Okay, because I thought all the sirens and stuff outside were alluding to things are happening in other places, but maybe it just meant they're all rushing to the hospital.
No, that's how I took it. I took it as they're rushing to the hospital. I
Okay,
never,
that makes sense.
never
No,
got the
I-
impression there was other stuff going on elsewhere.
Okay, you're right. That makes a little more sense. So now the threat. So we finally have some form of a ticking clock where the hospital is going to be burned down at the government's order in the next 2 hours, but they don't know that from the inside.
No,
So-
I have no idea.
It's not really a ticking clock because there's no threat again for them.
Nope. And thank God the movie does not take place in real time.
So somehow this movie manages to shift time because the 96-minute TRT felt double that. It just
Yeah. So there's stuff going on. They've quarantined off the hospital. Dee Dee decides to get more drunk with her gardening buddy, the one who who was brought in, Fred, who was the first to die, the one who got infected by the plant that was in Dee Dee's greenhouse.
yeah, she's just got the most exotic plant on earth from some island.
Now-
just chilling in her greenhouse in Toronto.
Yeah. Now the thing is, the plant's still there.
Yeah, and they do make a call where they send somebody over to that house to retrieve it.
Oh, do they? Okay.
Yeah. So the head of security
missed that.
guy, so the security guy ends up going to the house to get a sample under the doctor's orders, and he gets there and the fire department's burning the house down. And
Oh, right.
yeah. And so now that's all gone, so they can't analyze it, they can't do anything. Then we cut back to the hospital, and then we introduce a new character who, the only way I can understand, he's like the facilities manager because he's got a couple pens in his pocket. And he has one of those deaths, which you see so many of in this movie, is these damn POV cameras where it's just a guy hobbling along downstairs, and then there's this POV camera rushing up to him, and you get a glimpse of a crab claw. This is the first time we see anything, and it's in shadow, and it looks like a crab claw, but it's not moving or anything. And then you see him scream, and now he's dead, and more green goo. It's so poorly done.
Yeah, it's like they decided to take a page from Jaws and not show you much of the creature till the end.
Except they don't have an incredible supporting cast to actually pull it off.
Shocking. They do have a good cast. They just they don't have the script
You're right. No.
and the gravitas of some of the actors, I should say, because most of these guys are all character actors.
Yeah. No, you're right.
Yeah.
It is a good cast. It's just they're poorly directed or poorly
Yeah.
utilized.
Yeah, exactly.
So then there's like another 10 minutes of these various characters just walking around, not doing anything, or
Well,
they're
the kids
not
are in the
advancing.
basement looking around for a while, and I was just like, I got a note like, where do you get the flashlight from?
Oh yeah. Well, I
what's
guess
a kid doing in a hospital with a flashlight?
I guess it's because she already said that I found you in the air ducts last week.
Yeah,
So
I
they're
guess so.
they're adventurous kids.
But
But
why would he have a flashlight in the hospital? Like, did he steal it from somebody?
probably
or-
stole it from the maintenance guy or something.
That's
I
a
don't-
better story.
So we're pushing now after that another 10 minutes of just BS of them just walking around. We're at 51 minutes and 19 seconds and we see the creature finally, and it's only in the corner in shadow, kind of idling, not doing anything, like breathing or gestating. And then the detective and the bug doctor and the woman doctor all show up downstairs to see this thing. And then the detective just pulls out his gun and he's just going to blast it. And then,
And Don Lake's like, no.
yeah, he's got like a full on hard on for this bug.
Yes.
And he's
yeah,
like,
I wrote Don Lake loves the monster.
he does. And he's like, and then he's like, you can't kill it. It's incredible. Let me take a picture of it. And I'm thinking,
This is where he says, I got to get closer. And he moves the other side of the railing. So he's now about 12 inches closer.
yeah,
He's taking
this is
pictures. It's like,
useless.
dude, you could have leaned that far.
But it's like this thing is supposedly this threat, and he wants to take a photo of it. Just let the guy shoot it, and then take all the photos you want. It's not going to make any difference. It's not like the guy's going to vaporize it with his gun. It's just a strange thing of him like, let me get
Yeah.
closer.
It's already
And-
killed 2 people. You know this for a fact.
And you still don't see, as he's creeping towards you, you don't see any more of it. A couple more close-ups of these like crab-like sort of legs and thorns and stuff, but there's just, you still don't know what this thing looks like overall. It's pretty ambiguous at this point.
And then isn't this where it like detects them and it kind of comes at them?
This is where it poops out a baby.
Oh, that's right. He's saying it could be 500 or 600 that are going to
Yeah,
come
he
out of
doesn't know that quite yet, but he decides that it's a hermaphrodite right there and then.
it. Yep.
And he's like,
Yeah. He's like 500 is at least.
but again, we still don't know what this thing does, and 500 or 600 of these things contained in this hospital still isn't a threat. Like, we don't know what it's capable of, and he didn't even let him try and shoot it with his gun, so you don't even know how vulnerable it is. There's just nothing at stake here.
Yeah. Yeah. But then it does kind of charge them, right? If I remember right. And that's when our lady doctor just like runs away. And
Yep,
she
and
leaves the 2 of them behind. Just,
And we get another great POV cam chase, and it's this
Yeah.
camera just running and her screaming, and it's just these are so tiring by this point in the movie. So when she's running, did you notice the metal door that she hides behind? Did you notice that VFX gag there?
no.
So she closes this metal door, and then it's like behind the metal door, and it's like kicking at her or doing something, trying to get to her.
Oh, when it's punching through the door. Yeah.
Yeah.
right. Yeah.
So did you notice what's happening with the dents on that door?
No, I just noticed a couple of dents and left it at that.
So the dents start appearing, but they're appearing, and the dents are on her side of the door, and they keep appearing. So what's happening is they're rolling camera, and somebody's hitting this door with a sledgehammer, and then they're jump cutting all the hammer hits out of it. And so these dents just keep popping up on the door on her side.
Yeah.
It's like they couldn't even figure out a gag to make it pushing from the other side, probably because for whatever reason. But it's so terrible. Like, again, there's just no force coming from the other side of the door. It's a really poor choice. We get another shot of it, like it's just a silhouette, but it's more of the same crab legs. No definition, no payoff creature shot yet.
Yeah.
And then the kids show up again. And
Right.
they're wandering around with their flashlight. And one of the kids says, I bet we'll find a big blue monkey down here.
Yep.
Now, I had no idea what the kid was talking about or what that was reference to until I figured out later after the fact. Did you catch on to what that was meant to be?
It's supposed to be like her imaginary friend or
Yeah.
something, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know that, and I was
Yeah.
like, what is this in reference to? And yeah, you're totally right. I guess it's like it was some plot device that was never fully explored.
Shocking.
Where, yeah, just like clockwork again.
Yeah.
So it all stems from that. But yeah, that was a bit of a fizzer too.
Well, as again, as the title card showed, this movie's called Insect anyway, so what doesn't matter.
That's right.
Well, they're back in the hospital, and that's where I think we discover that booze is the answer to stopping the infection.
Okay.
Because I've got it written in big letters, underlined twice. Booze is the answer.
But nobody learns that or finds out.
No, it's just the doctor has an inkling, and yeah, they never really tell you anything, that she's not running around pouring Jack Daniels in everyone's IVs or anything.
And that's where the head of the research facility, he sort of sides with the government, and he says there's a mass containment warning and it's too risky to let anybody out. We're on our own. Like, he's almost like, you know, if they're going to burn us down in 2 hours, let them, because this is a bigger problem, even though it's clearly not. But he's trying to sell it as a bigger problem. And then now they have a conversation with the bug guy, and how long before the eggs hatch, and how long can they grow, and he goes into this whole sort of bug science guy mode, and he's like, sort of calculates it, and he's like, these could produce over 100 million of these creatures within a year. But the problem is that's still not a threat to me, because there's only one of these grown by the kid dumping the growth hormone on it, and they haven't seen other big ones. And they're not in there for a year. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's thin.
There's the two big ones, right? There's a male and a female.
Right.
Although for whatever reason they say it's a hermaphrodite, though, and then it's like, but because they kill the female, they burn her.
Well, it's a hermaphrodite because it gives birth, because it's the only one, and they see it give birth, and that gives birth to the male, and then the male has to.
Okay.
Yeah. So the bug guy's like, it's a hermaphrodite. It's breeding, and now. Yeah, it's bred a male, and now the male's going to protect the female. So there's like a little,
I
ant lore there.
That, yeah.
It's easy to misunderstand the movies. It's not very clear.
I tuned it out a few times, I admit. Sort of realized, I should pay attention. But
he finally talks about the creature because up till this time, we've never even seen them try and shoot a bullet at it still. Right. So we don't know how strong or weak it is. But then the bug guy sort of says, he's like, that's just like all of them. You cut off a head or a limb and it'll grow back. And he says the male shell has like armor plating. And then he goes into this whole spiel like, conventional weapons are useless. So they come up with this plan. They're like, well, why don't we just burn the female? And he's like, well, we don't know where she is or how to find it. And we're confused. And that's a really hard sell. And then, God damn it, guess who's going to save the day? The fucking kids.
Kid knows his way down around the tunnels downstairs.
The kids. So, bad device to include a kid that crawls around air ducts. So unnecessary.
No, so then they, I don't remember how they get to it, but I remember them burning it. And all I could think was through the rest of the movie, like, there's still a fire burning in the basement.
And it's not really this. It doesn't feel like a maze of tunnels. It feels like one tunnel that anybody could find where they're going. The kids aren't even used.
Oh, and the kids, like, it just ends to just a whole bunch of rooms at the end.
Yeah, it's like not very hard to find or to figure out how to get down there. We get a couple more cutaways of the creature. Still nothing, no payoff. This whole time while they're searching for it, it's a drag. And we're intercutting back and forth with the woman having a kid too, having the baby. Like, again, just empty character moments that we just don't care about.
It's just there for comedic levity and nothing else.
And it's not even funny.
Exactly.
So we still don't know about this creature. We don't know how big it is. Like, we haven't seen a person stand next to it, so you can't get a sense of scale or threat still. It's just bad filmmaking because you just don't know what it is or how big it is. And
you're just supposed to assume it's really big.
I guess so. Yeah. So after they finally get down there, they burn the female, which is really not very spectacular in any way. Nope. Then they're back up on the main floor of the hospital, and the male one just shows up. Like, what, did he take the elevator or something? Like, it's just there, like in the main area.
Yeah, and it's chasing him down the hall, and that's when the cop starts shooting it.
Yeah, and then now you get the taste of the armor plating because it's just got sparks flying off it.
Because I just wrote exploding bullets, question mark.
Yeah. Yeah, they definitely look like that.
Yeah, because
And
it's supposed to be like metallic, I guess, but it was dumb because it didn't look like it. Now, this is where I should say we finally do get to look a bit at the creature.
yes,
And I mean, the actual suit and the way it moves and everything else is actually pretty good.
it's good.
I did not like the design of it. I thought it was a cop out to basically make it a combination of a praying mantis with a fly head.
Yeah,
I guess.
it's just a big traditional ant mantis. There's nothing cool or alien about it.
No, it's not. They could have done something really cool, and they.
Like the Van Damme version of the Predator.
I don't think I've seen that.
Oh God, you got to look that up, dude. Oh yeah, when Van Damme was playing the Predator and it had a lobster claw and this ant head, it was horrible. That's a whole other discussion, though. Thank God for Stan Winston. All I can say, he saved the day on that movie. But
I don't even know
so
what
this
that is.
so this turns into this sort of chase around the main floor of the hospital, and then they get the bright idea to run and hide in the laser room, and I'm like, oh, this is why they're experimenting on lasers in the hospital.
Yeah,
at the
I
beginning
wrote
of this movie.
there's underscore the laser, but it doesn't do anything? Question mark.
We should point out this is 122 minutes into this movie, into a 138-minute movie. So this has been a long haul before you see this thing. And there's one actually okay death where there's a guy with a bandage around his head, and the ant monster just sort of grabs him and like pinces off the top of his head.
Yeah.
And he chops it off and starts eating his head. And it was an okay gag, but it still wasn't worth the 72-minute wait.
No, exactly. There is a death scene I liked, and that's when it pulls the guy up into the rafters or whatever, and there's just like body parts falling.
Oh yeah.
That made me laugh. That's a little bit. I'm jumping
they're
ahead
just
a little
these
bit. Yeah.
like dry rubbery bits. There's
Yes.
like no goo. There's nothing. It's not. And this is the final showdown.
Finally.
Yeah, you're hoping for some kind of massive payoff at this point because it's really feeling like a chore right now. And then Dr. Carson, she picks up one of the lasers off the ground and just starts kind of shining the laser on it. And it doesn't like it. There's no real result.
I've seen stronger lasers at a rave.
Yeah, it's pretty underwhelming. And she just kind of like paints the laser all over this thing, and it's kind of screaming, and like it takes a few steps back, but it doesn't really hurt it much. There's not much damage happening on it.
Obviously causes it some pain, but that doesn't actually hurt it. Yeah, you don't see any blood or any cuts or anything like that at all.
Right. And then this is the moment where, because as we said at the beginning of the movie, when Dr. Carson gives Detective Bishop the tour of the facility, they go into the laser room and they're like, this is what we're doing. And you see two lasers come and meet at a point and explode like a jar of goo. So
Yeah.
she's got one of the lasers in her hand. And so you're thinking, here we go. He's
Yep.
going to pick up the other laser. They're going to cross streams. This is going to be we figured out how to do this, right?
Yes, but no.
Yeah, absolutely not. She just puts the laser down and runs away. Then he picks up the same laser, and then he just starts lasering it, and it kind of just smokes out one of its eyes. But it
Yeah, well, that's because the bug guy yells, "Shoot it in the eye," or
Right,
"Aim
and-
for its eye."
and he's got a little tape recorder, we should say, with some bug sounds on it. And he
Yes.
plays that, and that kind of attracts it. Like he just carries a little bug sound tape deck with him
Sounds
everywhere.
like the female. Sounds like his mate.
That's right. I mean, again, I'll always say these movies kill the monster, credits roll. That definitely happens, but
It takes
I
a
just
bit.
feel no payoff on this.
Yeah, but it takes a bit. They have to wrap up everyone's little storyline so you know everybody's okay in the hospital.
Right. The pregnant woman delivers the baby.
Yeah. And he makes some line about how, if my calculations are correct, he'll be walking in 34.2 weeks or whatever it was. That he
Right.
says.
So
Yeah.
everybody gets like a nice wrapped up
Yep.
happy ending.
Yep,
Everybody's
and then-
happy they've had a new kid, except the leukemia kid. They
Yeah.
just never mention it again. And he has
Oh.
the most tragic thing of the whole lot.
Well, probably because he died of his cancer.
But he's there at the end. But it's
Yeah.
like not like, oh, by the way, Timmy, when we crossed the streams on this bug, it melted some goo out, and it's actually a cure for leukemia. Have 3 of these and call me. Like, there could have been some result of like them defeating this ant to help him out. Like,
nope,
none of that.
No, but again, you don't care about the kids, so why should the movie?
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. So, and then our Don Lake gets into a cab, and the cab's like, "Where to?" He's like, "I'd like to go home, please." And they drive off, and I'm like, it's a little known fact, Sam, that all cab drivers in Toronto know where everybody lives.
Take me home.
Yeah. It's the biggest city in the country, but
Of course.
yeah, they still know where all 6 million people live. It's no problem.
It's funny. And then there's the final gotcha moment.
Well, no, before that, the dude's like, he says, "Hey, maybe we can go out sometime or whatever." And he says she says, "Sure." And then he says, like, "I make a mean or good something or other." So the doctor's going to go over to his place for dinner or whatever. And then he walks away and he keeps walking.
Right. So he kills the monster.
Keeps walking. And this is like at the end, he's on the steps of the hospital. He's saying goodbye to the doctor. They've got a date plan now. And he walks away and he just keeps walking and walking and walking and walking. It goes on for I'm serious, it's like 30 or 40 seconds. And then we cut to the gotcha moment.
Everybody's getting their stuff wrapped up. Nobody cares. He gets the girl. The monster's dead. And we finally get the little gotcha hook before the credits roll. Which...
Right. Well, this is where we get the Sam Raimi shaky cam that takes you all the way through the hospital. And it takes you down into the basement. And then there's this little glowing wiggly thing.
I think credits roll.
Yeah.
Because that's how unsure I was of it too. I'm like, I think that's an egg. Make it something. Make it the bug guy takes one home in a container because he loves them so much. Make it something where there's
or better yet, show all these flowers on Madagascar and show thousands of them.
Yeah, right. Or cut to another market somewhere. Yeah. And some guys being like, "Yeah, check out this new species we got," and some old woman taking it to her greenhouse. Anything, but just another egg in the bottom of this hospital, which is going to get fumigated the second because the military are concerned about this place, so they're going to sweep through it. There's just zero sense of threat.
Yeah,
I don't know.
No, exactly. Especially when this plant is obviously all over the place.
Yeah, it didn't just show up. It's only one in Toronto.
Hundreds of them, if not thousands, have been sold around the world at this point.
This wasn't a good movie.
No, it was not. But you know what its IMDb score is?
I'm really upset about that.
It's a 4.8.
Yeah.
Yep.
Undeserving. I'm usually pretty generous with scores, but I do not think this movie deserves that. I think every person who rated this movie has not seen The Last Chase and definitely hasn't seen Starship Invasions. Because those would score
better than this. Yeah.
They're much better than this. Even, again, Empire of Ash still had a more watchable, because I'm waiting for a surprise of something goofy or weird to happen. And so it still keeps you in. This just felt so draining.
It's a competently made film. There's nothing wrong with how it's made.
Yes.
Unlike, say, Empire of Ash. But it's just, it's just the cast is wasted and...
unutilized. And it's nice. I mean, it was 185 to 1. That's something. It's better than most of the movies we've been watching lately.
Yeah.
And straight off the bat, I mean, my first comment, I couldn't find budget info for this or box office. So I would love to know what it costs. I'd probably be infuriated, to be honest. But
yeah. I think for the most part it went straight to VHS probably, but I know it shows as having a US release, but my guess is it, played in one theater and then they put it out on VHS.
Yeah, well, let's talk about that because it was released all over in 1987 as Insect, but in the Czech Republic, it was released as Inseminator in 1994. So this movie had 7 years sitting around before they got distribution over there, and then they changed it to Inseminator. In the UK, it was also released on VHS as Invasion of the Body Suckers, which is a great name, actually. but it specifically said VHS, so I think that just means it never got a theatrical run over there.
Yeah.
Probably just got a VHS copy and they rebranded it for whatever means.
Yeah.
The title Blue Monkey, again, as we said, referred to by the kid coming up with their imaginary friend, but they never really deep dived into it. The reason it's called Blue Monkey is because the original working title was Green Monkey, but that changed during the production because there was a huge conspiracy going around at the time in the 80s that AIDS came from green monkeys.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So they switched it to blue, and then that was sort of, yeah. I don't know. There's not much else to say about it. It wasn't it was entirely shot at the Humber College in Toronto, as you said, which they made good use of, to give it fair. You know, it didn't feel like it was all inside of one building, even though it was. But
yeah, no, and I'm sure the greenhouse was just behind the university as well, or college or whatever, too. It was probably just all there.
So given the funds, would you remake this?
No.
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 There's a million better movies than this.
Yeah, I mean, the
same.
script's no good, so you know, if it had a better, you should remake something if the story if there's a really good idea behind it, or if there's it's got a good storyline or whatever, and it just wasn't executed well.
Yeah,
that to me is like where you remake something. So this just no, it's just kind of. Yeah.
There's no real redeeming things about this other than a great cast lineup.
Mm-hmm.
But, yeah.
Yeah. No. Whereas like Starship Invasions and The Last Chase are both worthy of remakes.
Absolutely.
And The Last Chase probably doesn't even need one.
No. Yeah. If my DVD shows up soon, it'll probably just be as enjoyable to rewatch because I'd have a hard time finding somebody with as much charisma as Lee Majors anyway. So
well, exactly, and that's the thing. It's just you have a hard time trying to replace him.
Yeah.
I guess you could use Ryan Gosling.
Oh,
since you know he's the fall guy
so
now.
Much.
But
speaking of unnecessary, God. Yeah. Well, I wish I had more to say about this movie, but I just I don't want to say it doesn't deserve it, but you know, I mean, at least we covered it. I mean, that's the whole point of this. You know, the Outer Reels. We watch these movies so you don't have to.
Well, I'd never heard of it before. So, and you know, every now and then we discover something new and cool, and this just isn't one of those times. Again, anything but Casino, right? So
that's right. I will say, Blue Monkey, definitely anything but Casino. All right. Well, thanks, Jason. Thanks for slogging through this one. This was a surprise to me that it was as rough as it was to get through. So,
it's gonna happen.
Yeah. I won't say that I'll try to do better next time because we're going to have some doozies to come, I'm sure.
Oh,
but
no
as
doubt.
always, it's super fun. And thanks, man. We'll do it again.
Thank you. All right.
Cheers.
Take care.
Therefore, whatever appears on the television screen emerges as raw experience for those who watch it. Therefore, television is reality, and reality is less than television.